So I know I feel terrible, but uh, this little hand up here is ad, and then if I go to say the age, it should tell me how many ads it's blocked on the page. So it's sort of counting up 7, 8, 11, and all it's doing is typical ad platforms have very predictable code. It's JavaScript code, and you can pretty much tell what it is. So someone just built, or a bunch of people have built ad blocking software that says, all right, when there's this injected piece of JavaScript on the page, just block whatever it's trying to do. So don't let it load, because the website browser has control over that, sort of client side. You can decide whether you want to show that JavaScript or not. So that's 11 ads on this page haven't been loaded, and you can see there's a big gap there. That's probably where an ad was going to go. So if I turn it off, you can see. Let's try to pause it. But it's only really relevant. Yeah, so there's an ad that didn't show. There's another ad up here. That was on there. Yeah. So I'll show you the yeah, there's another one there. If there were whereas there might be some sponsored content, and it won't pick up sponsored content because that's actually an article. So I actually really like it because, and I worked in marketing for years. I worked in advertising marketing for 10 years or 8 years or whatever. If someone wants to block your ad, it means that you're not working hard enough to make your whatever it is you're doing relevant to that person. I hate interruptive style advertising is terrible. No one likes that. So it's incumbent on the advertiser and the marketer to make things more relevant, and it's incumbent on the media company to try and accommodate that. Not because the consumer's always going to win. They're always going to find something to do to get rid of ads or do something that they don't want to see. Like, it's just what they're going to do. That's my personal opinion on it anyway. Yeah, cool. All right. And this is the actual penetration of uses, like percentage use of ad blocking across these different markets. So where's Australia? Might not be in this list. Ah, yeah, 23%. So almost 1 in 4, and it's skewed very heavily to young people. And so that's only going to continue. That's only going to go up. As more people like yourself find out about it, you'll probably download it. You'll probably start using it. And it's very, very high in, say, so under 35s in Poland, 56% of them are blocking ads. So like they're a leading market, and then 18 to 24s, in these different markets. Look at the UK. That's an insane level and distribution. So if you imagine that those news consumers are going to be the people who consume news into the future, then they're going to be used to that kind of experience, and that behavior is only going to continue. And so media companies and entrepreneurs just need to get used to that. So when my startup company, we build technology for publishers. I haven't talked to you guys about that yet, but I'll do it somewhat when we get to the technology lecture. So when I talk to potential clients about using our platform, I say, look, just don't put any ad units in, because people are going to be blocking them anyway. Use sponsored content and other strategies to try and create content for people to read that's more relevant. They usually don't like it because it takes more work, but it's better for a user. And these are some of the reasons people give for using ad blockers. I'm sure, like convenience, and some people don't like, the fact that ads follow them around from site to site. Page speed. So publishers are terrible because they load their pages up with these bloated number of calls. There's like 100 JavaScript calls on some pages, and it just slows things down. And if you put an ad blocker on it, like speeds up your experience dramatically. And that's the advertiser's fault for doing that. Sorry, not the advertiser. That's the media company's fault for doing that. I'm going through these things pretty quickly. You guys can go through and read them more if you want. So the answer to that, a lot of people are saying, is sponsored content. So an ad, it's basically a piece of content that says it's like an advertorial brought to you by so and so. And some organisations are having a fair bit of success with this kind of advertising piece of content. So Mike, I think, is MIC. It's a media company in the US. I think 50% of their ad revenue comes from sponsored content now and content deals, as opposed to just traditional advertising. So that gives you a flavour. But I think that's mostly because their audience is very young. So they're probably feeling the effects of this more than others. But this affects, like ad blocking affects Google as well, and Facebook and everybody, not just publishers. Yeah. This goes back to what I was talking about right at the start. So journalism emerged with a relationship with advertising subsidizing journalistic output, and most people, almost 50%, accept that. So it changes from different country to country, but in the commercial press environment, notwithstanding non-commercial press like the ABC, most people are willing to accept a degree of advertising to support journalism and content output, which is sort of incongruent with the fact that everybody's using ad blockers, except not for yourself, because now you've got to.
I might put it back on actually.
Well, they're still advertising to you, but probably just in ways that it's not as obtrusive. But that's not necessarily borne out by the number of people actually paying for news, so subscribing to news content. So have any of you guys ever actually paid for a news subscription?
Yeah.
No?
I subscribe to the New York Times, so that's pretty cheap.
New York Times, yeah. And mainly because it's cheap?
Yeah, well, I think that paywall model is pretty good, where you get like a certain amount free, and I was used to reading them, and I liked reading it, and then I used up the 10 or whatever articles I get for free, so well, it's only like $4 a month or something, so...
Right. That's interesting because, so is it 10 a month, the paywall?
Yeah, I think it is, yeah.
So that's interesting because Fairfax have 30 free, but then their subscription is higher?
I think New York Times, it used to be 20 and I think they reduced it to 10.
Right.
Yeah, but I think, from what I read, that was doing pretty well. Worked pretty well for a paywall.
Okay. Yeah. You would imagine they'd have pretty high volume in that, because they call themselves the best newspaper in the world.
Yeah.
Arrogantly. But you two have never paid for any news content?
I just bought magazines of The Economist.
Economist, oh yeah. So like once off buying The Economist. I'm a big fan of The Economist, as you could probably tell. What about in China? Do you subscribe to any news, or is it?
I just use the website. Yeah, I think most of news are free.
Mm.
Yeah.
So there's not really subscription news companies?
Online news, we don't subscribe it.
Okay.
For free.
Yeah.
Open to us.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, so I'll go through quickly sort of these sort of 4 areas I reckon have a bit of a few legs in them, essentially. One I reckon, and this is sort of what I was getting to around chat apps and active users. So this is from Q1 2015, so that's probably changed quite a lot, I'm imagining. You girls might be able to tell me what's wrong with this. Well, actually, yeah, so that's why I asked, actually, is it a different company? Because when I was looking at that, it's actually wrapped up into another company. So is there another company that actually owns? So there's WhatsApp, which is the one you were mentioning.
WeChat?
Oh, WeChat. Sorry.
No, they are the same company.
So QQ owns WeChat, yeah.
Yeah,
No, QQ.
Tencent.
Yeah.
Tencent owns.
Different
QQ and
products.
WeChat.
Okay, cool.
And Sing owns the Weibo.
Right.
WeChat and QQ.
1,
2, 3, 4, 5. WeChat. The fifth is WeChat.
Have you guys ever used a news chatbot? So do you know what I mean when I say a chatbot? So a chatbot, and it sort of goes into the next one, which is sort of AI and algorithms and feeds and that sort of stuff. But I'll open some of these so we can have a look at them. You can actually see what I mean. But for example, BuzzFeed did one for the Republican convention, and it's basically a chatbot, and then you can install it into your favorite chat app. So it's basically using, you see here, like, if we actually look at that, I'll just zoom in, like, notwithstanding that some of those are probably very wrong by the sound of it, but there are millions of people using chat apps every day. So Facebook Messenger in Western countries is probably the most popular. So they opened up that platform to developers, and developers said, right, well, how can we get people to interact with content in a chat app? And one of the best ways to do that is through an AI bot, basically where you ask it questions and it just gives you stuff back. So some of the time, chat bots made by developers are just really boring and sort of they're not very useful. Like, show me an awesome picture of a cat, and it'll show you a cat. But news companies have started using them as a way to get people to interact with content. So you might go in your chat app, you could go and click on BuzzFeed, and then ask it, what's going on, or tell me what's happening with XYZ, or what interesting things have happened today, and it will come back at you with content. It'll respond to your inquiry, and then you'll be able to actively engage with it, and it will learn your behavior, which is pretty interesting. And it's a way, because news companies and media companies are always trying to insert their content into the places where people are paying attention, or where people's attention is focused. And at the moment, a lot of that attention is focused in chat apps. So how do you actually get your content into a chat app? I'm not an expert in this area, because I don't really use chat apps very much. So I'd be interested to hear what you guys think about this. But I reckon there's probably some interesting innovation that could actually come through here, because people are there. Like, there are millions and millions of people in these apps all the time. So if you want to go fishing where the fish are for an audience, then you're probably well placed to start with one of these. Like BuzzFeed. So BuzzFeed have this, they have, like most big media companies, these guys have got lots of money. They've got a innovation lab based out of San Francisco, and they made a chat app, a reporter bot, to report. It's called BuzzFeed Open Labs, to report on the Republican convention. And it could send you SMSs as well as respond to stuff, and you could engage with it. And if it could tell that you're actually there, it would ask you to post photos and contribute content. So it was sort of almost like a way for them to increase their coverage and also engage an audience at the same time, which is pretty cool if you think about it. Like, so that's that one. So do you two use those chat apps all the time, like different chat apps a bit, like WeChat or not?
I just use WeChat to send messages to my friends and to get news from Weibo. Just to old fashioned. I don't like social media.
Okay. And what about yourself, Cameron?
I use WhatsApp, but yeah, I'm not a huge social media person.
That's all right. Now this one's really, this one is really interesting. So this company is an example of AI in the news. So artificial intelligence. Have you guys read much about artificial intelligence and the growth in artificial intelligence recently? No? Yeah? You heard a bit about it? No? So basically for many years, artificial intelligence was sort of like, it was pretty average, really. But a range of different advances in different areas of artificial intelligence and computing power has led to sort of a third, they call it the third wave of artificial intelligence. And I can send you some links if you are interested in this area as to what it actually means. But Google have an algorithm, they open sourced it and they sort of let people use it. And then so a bunch of example companies have emerged around artificial intelligence. Now lots of it's focused on commercial stuff because they're trying to make money from companies using AI. But some of these companies are doing things that are applicable to the media space. And one of them is this company, Automated Insights, and they built this platform called Wordsmith. And it generates a human-sounding narrative from data. And so a great little case study is AP, so the Associated Press, the company I was talking about before. They produce, I'll actually go to the case study so you can see it. In terms of content, there's Yahoo Sports as well. There we go, view the case study. Here we go. Yeah. So they apply it to financial news. So in the past, company reporting season would come around and they'd produce about 300 company reports, like news stories about companies that have reported their earnings. And most of the time they were pretty standard packaged pieces of content. Not particularly valuable, but they kind of still had to do it. So they could use this AI algorithm to basically go and get the right data and then form up a pretty standard piece of hard news, just reporting back what that is in a narrative fashion. And they could actually produce 3,700 of these things. Now, then they're not going to win a Pulitzer Prize. They're probably not going to make much of a difference to anyone's lives. But it's an interesting commercial application in the news environment for artificial intelligence. When you say this, a lot of people say, well, does that mean journalists are going to be replaced? In reality, those journalists would never be employed to produce those stories. Those aren't stories that journalists would have actually produced in the past, just because there was no real need to. But there is an audience for them. So it's interesting. I'm imagining there's going to be other applications of this kind of technology, and I'd recommend reading that little case study in the future around how AI so that's the first point. AI can be applied to news. The other area is this feeds and algorithms. So lots of us, as I mentioned before, we consume our content now based on algorithms that serve content up to us in an editorialized way. But then also some of these big social media platforms are actually employing journos in specific areas to curate recommended content for that very reason. Now, I don't know, what do you guys think about that? Do you think it's a bad thing, a good thing?
Interesting.
It's interesting.
The AI thing.
Or the AI thing, yeah, but that sort of recommendation engines and the fact that a lot of the content is served back to us is actually based on previous behavior and machine learning.
I don't know whether it's a good thing or not, but it does make sense to do it that way.
Mm. Yeah, it raises some interesting ethical questions, but it's definitely an area of innovation that's going to continue on into the future around content. So there's lots of content recommendation engines out there. A couple of searches online, you'd be able to find lots of different companies doing different things in that space. The next area I reckon is probably really, really interesting is video and live video. Now, this has been going on for a while. So, any of you guys, do you use Periscope at all? Periscope, the app? No? It was launched by Twitter, and it's just a live streaming app, live video. Facebook Live.
Live show?
Yeah, or you just use your phone, you can just broadcast whatever it is in front of you. And people can start watching it then and there.
It is also popular in China.
Is it? Yeah. What's the app in China? Is it through?
So many.
There's so many.
Yeah.
There's not a leading one, like one that has the most.
I just know.
I think maybe one is named Zhouyu, but it's based on the PC games.
Okay.
Yeah, and many other about beautiful girls. It's very strange.
So it's a bit sleazy.
And Weibo also have the function.
Weibo has it, does it? Okay, right. Yeah, so it's the same thing. And there's been some really prominent, well-publicized examples of live streaming video from people getting shot or people getting arrested. Or so this one girl was actually, so you know the Florida shootings that happened recently in America? Did you guys hear about that story?
Orlando.
The Orlando shootings, yeah. Florida, Orlando. Yeah. So in a gay club, I think it was about over 50 people were shot. One of them was actually using Snapchat and broadcast it live, and she broadcast her own death. So she was on Snapchat broadcasting live video as she was shot. Another one is a guy who was in America who was pulled over, and his partner was in the front seat, and she was broadcasting the arrest on Facebook video live. Facebook live video. And he was actually shot by the police officer, and she was narrating it and broadcasting it live onto Facebook. There's a company called Storiful. It's now owned by News Corp. They're a startup, and the whole premise of their business is an algorithm that basically goes through online video, curates and finds newsworthy, shareable, interesting content and then they verify it through a range of different means, sometimes human intervention, sometimes computer intervention. That's the whole model. And then they sell that content to media companies. So it's an interesting idea. I'll show you there. It's all based on based through YouTube. Pardon me. Let's see some video, just some recent video. Yeah, like shareable content, sort of like that BuzzFeed angle. All this ridiculous sort of shareable stuff. Close encounter with a Gold Coast whale. Oops. They've got their own channel called Storiful Dogs. I don't know if there's any news content. There we go. So that's just like raw footage. Car crashes. Oh, I've seen this one before. Yeah, an interesting idea. I'm sure there's other ways that this could be pushed and made more interesting. And there's probably millions of startups in the live video space at the moment. The next one, which sort of relates to that idea that I'm going to pursue during this semester with you guys, which is that news block idea, is the whole idea of breaking the old advertising model. So this is what I'm interested in and I'm quite passionate about. So all the way through what I was talking about before, there was the whole idea that advertising gets put onto a page next to some media and you sell that as a product, right? So that's what a newspaper is. You put some stories in it, you put some ads in there, you sell it to someone as a product. Whereas media companies media companies who are focused on content are really good at creating content. Yeah. And then they also have people who sell advertising sometimes they don't, but mostly it's about the content. So what I'm saying is like there's innovation available in breaking that model and assuming that you have to have advertising next to journalism to try and to monetize it. To actually, that model is so old. If you really think about where it came from, we were going through that. It started with the printing press, and that's like 200 years ago. So is there a way that we can break that advertising attachment model? You know, it's so ridiculous that we basically took the print advertising model and put it into the digital media and the digital space and expected it to work. And it's not really working, and things like ad blocking are just sort of constantly chipping away at it. So is there a way that you could potentially just be a content producer, distribute that content anywhere and make money from it, or at least benefit from it? Now, platforms like Medium, which you guys might have heard of, it's a blogging platform, YouTube, a range of others, they have monetization models available for producers, but they all occur on their individual channel. So if you put a video on YouTube and it gets lots of hits and you're registered, then you can make money from it. They also have like a subscription system where you could get people to subscribe to premium content, but it all happens just on YouTube. But what if you want to take your video and also put it on Vimeo and also put it, you know, on Facebook and in other places, when there's no way to harness that distributed nature of content now? Whereas you could do that in the old model because you owned the newspaper and the newspaper got thrown by someone to someone's house. Like, so you could actually monetize the whole thing. Whereas distributing content now means going to potentially 1,000 different locations, all with different media, you know, forms in different timescales. Like, it's sort of broken. You can't apply an old advertising model to that new distribution model. And then there's two companies that are actually doing it now. So there's one called CoinSpark, which is actually blockchain, Bitcoin related, attaching metadata to the blockchain. I'm not going to go into blockchain right now because it's too detailed. And there's another one called Media Chain, which is doing a similar thing. Blockchain's definitely not a topic for today. And then the other two ones are actually, there's the one called participatory. The participatory trend, I think, still has legs. And then niche mediums. So I'll start with niche mediums. What I mean by that is like audio, augmented reality, augmented or VR, any other different type of way to present content to someone for them to comprehend or learn or understand news content. So have you guys followed or been aware of this sort of little renaissance of podcasting that's happened? Yeah? So that's sort of pretty hilarious that the medium outlasted the actual platform. So it started with like iPods, right? And yet podcasts have now sort of come back and outlasted the actual thing that they were born on, which is pretty hilarious. But people are, you know, producing pretty interesting, harder news content in podcasts and actually kind of making a fist of it. It's kind of cool. It's interesting. And there's probably more niche mediums to be explored like that could come back. And then the other one, participatory. These two platforms, probably two of the best known in the States. The Huffington Post, have you guys heard of that? Yeah? Started by Ariana Huffington, sold to AOL for $300 million. 9,000 contributors built that for her, and then they sued her after she sold it. They sued her because they were like, well, where's our share of all of that money? And she won in the court. She actually won the case, saying, well, you gave it to me for free. Like, that was the deal. SB Nation's another one in the States. It's like a blogging network of sports writers, professional, semi-professional, and just somewhat amateur. But those have basically run their course. They're kind of done. But I reckon there's better ways to do participatory journalism, like better ways to actually bring content from these social networks and produce interesting, meaningful journalism out of it in a way that, so in both of those cases, you basically said, gave someone a login and say, here you go, write something for me, and then if it's good, I'll publish it. And that's kind of, it's great. That was innovative in 1995, you know, but it's not now. That's not how people create or consume content now. Yeah. And that's it. All right. Did you guys have any questions on that? That's sort of my roundup of where I reckon media is now. No? This report, if you are interested, I'll actually get this is the actual website, the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism. Has a lot of the detail that I was talking to just then. And they do the report every year. So I'd recommend jumping in there if you've got any other areas that you're interested in to actually get the stats on it, particularly when you start building your business plan. If you've got a specific idea around a specific medium, specific audience, something like that, you can actually go here as a starting point to say, all right, well, what's going on with that medium right now? Start there, and then you can sort of go through what they refer to as a primary piece of research, because there aren't many primary pieces of research specifically related to journalism and the media. Cool, I reckon, yeah, so we've got like another 35 minutes. Did you want me to, before we move off that, did you want me to go into detail on any of those things or pull out a couple of them? No?
No. Good.
Cool. What I might do, I'll turn this off.